Okay, there we go. Okay, just fixing the moderation. Okay. All right, so just like last time, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. So if you're here on the replay, just please go ahead and fast forward to, I don't know, it's usually like I think 2-3 minutes in, something like that. If you want to bypass this first little bit, but since I'm jumping right in, I think we're probably getting started here pretty good. So hopefully there's not a lot you have to jump past. So anyways, thank you all for being here. Per usual, I am honestly just so grateful and so appreciative of your time and the opportunity to connect with everyone. So, here on the Human Condition podcast series, it is an opportunity to remember the experience of being human and to really align with the understanding of what those experiences mean for us. And most recently, as I'm sure many of you are aware, if you've been following me on any of my social media platforms, or if you have seen any of my posts or tuned into any of the lives, you know the experience that I've been going through with Bruiser. And it is amazing what I'm witnessing right now. Where I'm at right now in the reality that I'm experiencing and the way that I'm experiencing reality, you would never know that just a week ago that he was in an emergency care with his life basically in the balance. So that's what it seemed like, right? So what I'm witnessing now in him is a playfulness, a vitality, an energy, an experience that I haven't witnessed in years. The playfulness is like he's a puppy again. I mean, it's amazing. And it's so easy every single day to wake up and interact with my reality. At least it's the easefulness is taking place in a way that I must admit I haven't really experienced, and it's really beautiful. So I want to share with you not only the easefulness with which a decision is, but why we find it difficult to not just anchor into the decision, but to maintain conviction once we have. As I was going through this process with Bruiser, I was connecting with a dear sister of mine the whole time, a dear friend. And she was also going through the process of committing to an apartment, and I was going through this situation with Bruiser. And as we were both going through these experiences simultaneously, she was battling with the decision of saying yes or no to this apartment. And I was basically facing my own experience with the decisions of, how I have ultimately approached that relationship and interaction with Bruiser and others in my life from the place of yes or no, if you will. And as I was going through this and experiencing these emotions and experiencing just absolute terror, as you guys know, as I've spoken into, one of the things she shared with me, and it was really beautiful, it was a powerful reminder, is that he's not really here, just like she's not really here. Because each of us are the main character in our reality, and there's no one else but us because we are the source. So I'm actually not interacting with Bruiser, right? And this is something I've talked about, but it's really powerful to have it come back because she said he's not really there. Like Éoaccí, he's not there. He's not experiencing the pain and the suffering. You are. And he's on the spirit plane. That's really where we are. We're all on the spirit plane. We're like little children. We're playing in this imaginative playground, and we're the source that is projecting a very small portion of our consciousness onto the 3D, onto this printable material plane that we get to interact with as if we're not the source. And because we are so powerful, we literally believe we have the power to actually believe that we have no power, which is really interesting. That's how powerful we are. We believe that we don't have the power to change or to experience change. I don't want to actually say we don't actually change, but we get to experience change. And what that means is a lot of times when we are going through situations and circumstances that feel really challenging, that feel very like we're very afraid, we're very fearful, we're not trusting ourselves, we're not trusting the choice. We feel like we can't do things right, or we feel like things aren't going right. And it feels like we're literally beneath the experience and it's pushing down on us, like we can't get out, like we're in a cage and we're somehow stuck within this framework or this matrix that we're somehow a victim to, and that we're somehow like trying to survive. And ultimately, that's the way our programs and our conditioning has us believe, is that this is our reality is a threat to us and we have to fight to survive. And if we have to fight to survive, then the way that we see the world is always coming from that position of we don't have the power and we ultimately can't do anything about it. But we also have to remember that the longer that we maintain that position, the less we're going to be able to see just not only how powerful we are, but just how great things really are. So when I was going through this experience with Bruiser, I was witnessing what I thought to be his last moments on this plane with me, which, as I said, he's not really here, but my interaction with that. And now that I'm on the other side of it and I see how great he's doing, I see that all roads were always going to lead here. That no matter what, this was always going to be the experience. Just like if I make the decision, like I live in a town, I'm sure obviously each of you live in a town or a city. If you decide to leave your house right now and go into town because you got to get groceries, you got to pay a bill, you make the decision and you go. You get in your car, you call an Uber, you ride with a friend, you ride with a family member, but you go and you do it. You do whatever it is you say you're going to do. We might have multiple, I know all of us have multiple roads, different avenues we can take to get from point A to point B. I know all the different roads I can take to get from my house into town. Ultimately, no matter what road I take, I'm going to end up in town. Doesn't matter. Some roads are quicker than others, but I'm ultimately going to end up there. And that's what this experience showed me, is that no matter what, no matter I was looking at it from the position of, if I would have done things differently, then I wouldn't have ended up in this situation with him. So that's where I was coming from. But that was never what was going to happen. I was always going to end up in this situation. I was always going to experience this contrast because it was necessary for me to understand my attachment to not just him, but to the version of him that I have created, which is actually just an illusion. It's a holographic manipulation of my mind. I have projected this image of him, just like we do for anyone in our reality, because nobody's really there but us. It's our belief systems projected out. It's our interaction with our own level of conscious awareness. And when we're interacting with the level of conscious awareness, how we interact with it, of course, is coming from a position of emotional attachment. So the majority of us have an attachment to good and bad, right and wrong. Whether we are aware of it or not, we do. This is why we're constantly on this like seesaw going back and forth of things being really good or things being really bad. And that's because in this emotional attachment, we have basically levered our value on how good we do or how bad we do. And therefore, the value of our experience is directly correlated to that way of believing. So even if I say, like I was doing with Bruiser, like I've done with my health, like I've done with money, even if I say, I know I can be healthy, or I know I am healthy. If I say I know I'm healthy, I know Bruiser's healthy, I know I'm a millionaire, but my belief system is conditioned to maintain a position of holding out space for the possibility of the worst, then I'm always going to be inviting that in, irregardless of what I say I know. I can constantly say I know something, but still be energetically and vibrationally linking to the possibilities of the worst. And that's because I don't really believe in the truth that right now in this moment, everything's working out perfectly. What I believe in is that, well, I know that could be true, but I really ultimately always look for the worst case. Or I'm always looking to place my value on if I'm doing good or if I'm doing bad, if I'm right or if I'm wrong. So emotionally, we carry these connections to those beliefs. And our emotions are what bring these interactions forward for us. And this is why, in my last live, I said it is so important for each and every one of you that's listening to this to take whatever it is you fear the most and to be with it right now. Because if you're not with it right now, you're going to be with it at some point in time where it feels like it's catching you off guard, like it's coming out of left field, like all the bad things are happening all at once. If you sit down and you place that fear in the forefront of your awareness right now, and you just sit in the presence of your own awareness, and you allow yourself to feel that fear, and you allow yourself to be consumed by it, then you're no longer operating from a state of avoidance. And this means that you're no longer afraid of it in the same way. It doesn't mean that the fear is going to go away completely. What it does mean is that you're not going to be running from it. What it means is that you have decided that you can feel that fear and you can face that fear, and you're not afraid of that fear in the same way. When we're afraid of something so deeply, our body, our nervous system is trying to protect us from what we fear the most. And so, since our nervous system and our five senses are the echo chamber of our belief system, if I am deeply terrified of something and I simply can't even sit with the thought of it, my nervous system is going to be constantly trying to protect me from what I fear. And it's going to be actually pushing away the opportunities for me to experience that I don't really, not only that I don't have to fear that, but how perfectly everything is working out right now, which is the evidence that helps me reconstruct my own perception to be able to interact with my reality from a more easeful state. So, and I cannot emphasize that enough. I really can't. You guys really, really, really seriously and truly sit down and let your fear consume you. Not only are you going to see that you're safe, but your body is going to metabolize what you would normally be storing as energetic imprints. And energetic imprints are always going to be, everything's an echo chamber. So whatever you have stored within you, you're still transmitting it, even if you don't know that you are. You're transmitting it. So that experience is going to come to you. There's going to be some contrast that comes to you. There's always going to be contrast. But when the contrast comes, you're going to feel like you're out of control. You're going to be emotionally chaotic. You're going to be terrified or fearful or angry or reactive. And instead of seeing the contrast as the gift that it is, the contrast will feel very, very life-threatening, like it did for me and Bruiser. And even though his life was actually never being threatened, even though everything was always going to be okay, I couldn't see it in that moment because my worst fear was coming to pass. And that worst fear was something that, even though I knew I was afraid of it, I still was avoiding feeling it. And I got to experience it. And it was hell. It was absolute fucking hell. And I can see, as I'm looking back, how even when I would sit down and I would go into my mind movies and I would do my meditations, I was still avoiding that scenario. I was trying so hard to create the perfect outcome, to create the perfect scenario, that I was just avoiding the worst case altogether. But I wasn't. That's the interesting thing. Hey, Mina, so happy to see you, my dear. And that's what I want you guys to really get from this, is that you, even though you may be in that moment avoiding it by not choosing to feel it, ultimately you can't avoid it. Ultimately, that experience will find you, and you will have an opportunity to interact with it. It may not come to pass as necessarily the worst case that you imagine, or it may not come to pass as your fear in the worst case as you imagine it, but you will have an opportunity to interact with it in terms of some form of parallel experience, because you cannot avoid that which you refuse. It's always going to come to you. You're always, the law of opposites, you're giving it attention whether you know you are or not, because you're fearing it. And you have two masters in that, in terms of, you've got source, you've got God, you've got Allah, whatever you want to call the ultimate, but then fear becomes also a master. So if you're unwilling to hold a space of acceptance for fear, then fear will end up controlling you. It'll end up ruling you. It'll end up being something that ultimately at the end of the day you can't be with, and so it forces you to be with it. So, as I've gone through this, and as I'm seeing just literally how perfectly everything was always going to work out. I realized that the contrast and everything that took place when my worst fear came to pass was not showing me that I had done something wrong, because that's where I was wanting to stay was, well, if I had just done this differently, if I had done that differently, then this wouldn't have happened. I could have avoided it. I should have done this. I should have, like, just going into that framework, that thought process. But that's actually not true. That's the delusion. That's the negative side of the delusion, is that I didn't do anything wrong. I did everything in the exact way that I decided to do, and this was the pathway of my experience. Like I said, if I decide to leave my house and go to town, I'm always going to end up in town. I was always going to end up here. I was always going to interact with this experience because it's part of my soul's growth. This is something I've probably been avoiding for many, many parallel lifetimes. And that is ultimately the fear of loss. And since I have been avoiding feeling that fear of loss fully and completely, it found me. It gave me an opportunity for me to be in just be engulfed in that echo chamber of perceiving that could be happening. I could be losing something I care about a lot. So now that I've gone through that, and now that I had the beautiful friend and sister remind me so eloquently that nobody's here but me, I can't lose myself. And if we're all on the spirit plane and we're all the source behind the lens projecting ourselves onto the 3D, then this is a game. I mean, have you guys, and I know we hear this, but I want you to just take a moment. Yeah, spiritual strength, absolutely. It's not how much can you carry, but how much can you free yourself from, because you're literally the only chains that bind us are the ones that we believe control us. So, and those are emotional chains, by the way, because there is literally no thought in existence that you create. Thoughts are a currency you tap into, and you have an emotional connection to them. And that's what keeps you. It's like a rubber band. You can try to pull yourself as far away from what you fear as much as you want to. You can try to avoid it, but you're always going to snap back. And that's because there's an emotional attachment to the fear. Like I said, anything that you try to avoid, you will face. You're always going to end up interacting with it. And so as you go on this journey, if you've ever played a video game, and I know there are video games out there because I've played them that have non-player characters, and you can interact with the non-player characters, and they'll ask you questions. And this is another thing that came through for me during this experience with Bruiser, is seeing myself in this game, and I'm interacting with these non-player characters, and that's literally the decisions I'm faced with. And as I'm being faced with a decision, it's like facing my own subconscious program. It's like facing an NPC. And this program is basically asking me, which way I want to go. What is my decision? Am I going to be nice to the barista because she spelt my name wrong, or am I going to get angry? Am I going to get angry in traffic because I'm running late for work and I'm just pissed off even though I didn't wake up in enough time, and all the things, how am I going to respond? How am I responding to life? That's my answer. And as I'm going through life and I'm implicating these different, or I'm applying these different responses, my course is shifting and turning, and ultimately I was always going to end up in the same place. I'm just taking a very scenic route, just like in the games. I am the one that's deciding, but ultimately I know when I'm playing the game, I can't make a wrong choice. It's just really cool to see what that experience is going to look like when I answer the NPC. It's like, okay, well, I said no last time. I'm going to say yes this time. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And that's exactly what's happening here. It's such a small portion of our own consciousness that we're interacting with on the 3D. And every single time we're faced with a choice, the decision isn't about right or wrong or good or bad. It's just how willing we are to accept our power. Because that's really what we're afraid of. We're afraid that we can't trust ourselves. We're so afraid that we're going to get it wrong, that we did something wrong, that we will do something wrong. And therefore, we avoid certain things or certain choices or certain experiences at all costs. We want to avoid what we think we're not gonna be able to be responsible for. And that's emotional responsibility. It's not any type of physical responsibility, not really. Because even the things that we're avoiding on the physical plane are because there is some form of emotional avoidance. For me, like procrastination, boredom, those things come from an inability to just choose. Not because I can't, just because it's because I'm not choosing. And when I'm not choosing, then I'm simply just in this suspension of waiting, just hoping things are going to somehow work out. And that comes from a lifetime of irresponsible emotional action. So that's also when I was, thank you. Thank you. And fear of the unknown, I'm really grateful you mentioned that. Because when we look at fear of the unknown, what that really is it's fear of not knowing what comes next. Fear of not having all the answers, fear of not knowing how things are going to turn out. But that brings me back to what I was saying before, that everything is always going to turn out exactly how it's meant to. And there is literally, it doesn't matter what you choose, that you will always end up in that outcome, no matter what. Your soul's path is already predestined. So this doesn't mean that we don't have free will. It means our free will comes within the second that we decide to honor the power that we hold. So you're literally, and I'm literally a second long. That's the totality of our existence, is a second, a heartbeat. That's where we live. And we are witnessing second after second after second after second, or heartbeat after heartbeat after heartbeat, layers and layers and layers and layers of subconscious programmed choices. And all of these programs are predestined for us. What happens is when we interact with the choices, the question is, are you going to accept that in that moment everything is already working out for your highest and greatest, or are you going to still try to control the outcome when the outcome is already happening for your highest and greatest, and there is literally nothing that you can control and there's nothing that you can change? Not because you're not powerful, but because you are the power and the source that has already designed your experience for you. And this also makes it very beautiful and very easeful if you think about it, because then there's really no unknown. You already know because you've already decided. If I've already decided that I'm a millionaire, or I've already decided that I'm healthy, or I've already decided that Bruiser's healthy, and by the way, he is doing amazing. Like I said, he was in emergency care a week ago. We didn't know if he was going to make it. And now, I mean, I haven't seen him act this way since he was a puppy. It's like, it's the version of him that I always knew was here. But I couldn't connect to that version because I wasn't connecting to that version. I was connecting to trying to control every little thing, trying not to make the right choice, trying to get everything right. So I wasn't experiencing the easefulness in which I get to interact with him and everything and anyone in my reality. Because I was constantly looking for the worst case. Even subconsciously, when I wasn't aware of it, my RAS was filtering all the evidence to show me how I needed to try to change what was happening, because if I don't, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. I need to do something now. I need to fix it now. In that moment when he was going through emergency care, I couldn't do anything. That's where I saw the power. I couldn't do anything. It was completely out of my control. But it wasn't. It wasn't. And how I came into the connection of being able to see just how my attachment to needing to control was constantly, not just constantly, but consistently, year after year, calling in experiences that were parallel. And I almost forgot about this. I need to say this really quickly. You guys, 2 years ago, he was in an emergency vet again because he blew out both his ACLs simultaneously. He had injured his ACL a year prior, no, almost 2 years prior. So every 2 years, I was interacting with a catastrophic event in relation to him. I didn't realize that until like a few days ago. I was like, holy shit, it was 2 years ago that he was in emergency care for his knees, and I was facing the same thing. And even after I witnessed him get better, I witnessed him walk on his own. I didn't have to go through surgery. He just started walking within 5 days because I started choosing to acknowledge and believe that he could. That's what took place this time. Even though I knew it was possible, it wasn't until I was faced with the catastrophe that I actually really chose to just like really give energy to it. That blew me open, like, holy shit, this is really a cycle. Like, this is really a cycle, and it's going to happen again 2 years from now. If I don't let go of needing to control the outcome, I'm going to keep meeting the same outcome that I'm trying to avoid because I'm not letting go of it. I'm not letting go of it because I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to change it. And if I'm trying to change it, I'm not letting go of it. So when I let go of it, man, I don't even think about it. I don't have an emotional attachment to it. I am literally unbothered. And this also, and Mina, I'm going to get to your message here in just a second because it's also another powerful one. And it was also in my conversation with Mina where this is, as Mina and I are good friends, and she's also a prior client of mine. She was the one that shared with me about him being on the spiritual plane. And a few nights ago, I was still having some anxiety around his diabetes because this is the diagnosis. He's diabetic. He has DKA, pancreatitis, all these things. And I was still looking for things that could be wrong to try to prevent myself from making a decision that was bad so that I wouldn't hurt him further. I was still cycling out of that. And so we went upstairs, and he had not been outside to use the bathroom since that morning. I could tell he had to go. I knew I was prepared. I knew he was going to go upstairs. I knew he was going to go to the bathroom. So I had all the things prepared for it. He peed in the little container that I hold there for him to pee. But he ended up, long story short, he ended up going back in the hallway and peeing again. And I wasn't prepared for that. And I've got family here, and my dad reacted a little bit. My mom was in the shower. So I had all these things going on in my mind, like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be mad. They know now that he peed in the hallway. I wasn't able to get to it enough time. And as I'm rushing to try to get to it, as I'm rushing to try to prevent more damage, and I try to get something up under him, it startled him, and it caused him to stand up and slip on his own pee and just crash. And it was just like all this chaos happening. It was just like he wouldn't stop peeing. I couldn't get to it quick enough. My dad's frustrated. My mom was okay. She wasn't bothered. She was just like, is he okay? What do we need to do? The air conditioner broke down. My mom had an accident. There was so much shit happening that day. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, it's just like one thing after another. And I felt again, I had that anxiety and that feeling of defeat, that just being defeated. And as I was cleaning up his urine, as I was cleaning up his pee, I was like, but hang on. What's so bad about this? Like, what's really so bad about this? We still have air. The guy's coming to clean it out tomorrow. Bruiser used the bathroom. It might be inside, but he used the bathroom. He relieved his bladder. That's a very good thing. He relieved it multiple times. He's had his insulin. He's eaten. He maybe didn't eat as much as I would like, but that doesn't mean that's just a story I'm carrying. So ultimately, my dad wasn't mad. I was just afraid of doing something wrong and him being mad at us, but that's not what happened. I was afraid that if I shared the news about the air conditioner with my dad, that he was going to be pissed off and that I was going to be more of a problem, that all these things, all these worries, all these concerns. And None of that mattered because nobody was mad. Nobody was upset. Bruiser was fine. He was fine. He went out a little while after that. And I share that with you because one of my other fears was he used to not go outside a lot and he used to not use the bathroom a lot. And so I was always trying to control that. So fast forward to now, he goes out. He goes outside on his own now. I don't even think about it. Like, I don't think about it. He gets up, he goes to the door, he goes outside. I don't think about it. I don't can like I'm not emotionally latched on to the fear of what's going to happen if he doesn't, because I'm already aware that he is. And this is where, a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I work with, there's this fear of loss of money, loss of sustainability. Like Mina mentioned, loss of fear of the parents' deaths. And, she said, I feel some fears, like the fear of my parents' deaths, are going to be there until it happens and it's not unknown to you any longer, or not unknown to me any longer. And the reason why those fears feel like they're hanging above us and pressing down on us is because they're staying up here. We have to pull them down and sit with them. Pull them down from up here into here. That's what was always going on with Bruiser. The fear, the what, I'm going to get in trouble. Somebody's going to be mad. I'm going to do the wrong thing. He's going to get worse. And it's all up here and it's all this noise and it's all this racket and it's da 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 all the time. And instead of me just pulling it down here and alchemizing it, which is metabolizing it, which is very interesting because he's diagnosed with diabetes, which is a metabolic issue. Metabolizing emotions is directly correlated to insulin and metabolic process of the digestive system, which is directly correlated to the gallbladder, the pancreas, so liver. So those things were inflamed and basically screaming because of all the emotional lack that I was consistently projecting. Because like Nina said, he's not really there. I know this. I know he's not really there. I know it's just the idea of him that exists. But which idea am I manifesting? That's the question. Which idea of the person that you're interacting with, which idea of them are you manifesting? Because that's the material interaction. Your nervous system can't interact with anyone but you. Your nervous system is attuned to your vocal range. Your nervous system is attuned to your vibrational pattern. Your nervous system is attuned to the frequency of you. That's your voice. That's your tone. That's your experience for a reason. There's no one else that has the same frequency as you. It's very unique, right? It's a thumbprint. So if it's you and only you, and you're interacting with your own thumbprint, then how are you choosing to do so? And I realized that I always, like, the things that I always knew, I wasn't giving them space to exist. I was giving more space to what I feared. Like, I know ultimately that I'm healthy. I know ultimately that I'm wealthy. Like, I know how easeful those things are. But I just simply don't give them the time and the space like I do to the worrying about my health, or the worrying about the next paycheck, or the worrying about what I'm going to have to pay this month, or the worrying about how much money is in my bank account, or the worrying about Bruiser's health, or the worrying about my parents and their situation and what they're thinking. That's where I'm always going. I'm always going out into this noise, this racket. I'm going out, always going up here. And that's why it feels like everything weighs down. But the amazing thing is that we're all of it, and we're the source, and we're actually above all of it. We're the awareness everywhere all at once. And we're just simply, we're simply projecting a small portion of our consciousness onto this plane in every second. And every second we have an opportunity to decide which portion of consciousness we interact with. And that's the idea. Which idea, which imagery, which vision, which imaginative exploration do you choose right now? Do you choose the imaginative exploration of everything working out, of it already being done, and literally living from there? And it's going to take some practice. I mean, I've known this stuff for years, but when you have an emotional attachment to fear, then it's like, again, like the rubber band, you're always snapping back into fear. And even when you have an aha moment around your behaviors and your patterns, it doesn't mean that you snap out of the reactive reflex of fear. And this is where people get stuck, right? This is the human condition, is we become slaves to our fear. Fear is the master. It controls where we go, what we do, how we live. It controls our decisions. It controls all the things, because we don't want to let someone else down. We don't want someone else to think negatively of us. We're so worried about managing our image. We're worried about hurting someone else. And we're afraid of loss. And when we slow down long enough to sit with that fear and let it consume us, and we metabolize it, things start to shift. They really, really do. I was met face to face with that fear and that terror. I couldn't run from it. As much as I wanted to get out of there, as much as I did not, I mean, every cell in my body just wanted to run away. I did not want to go through this. I didn't want to see him struggling. I didn't want to see him suffering. And because I've had a diabetic dog before, giving insulin shots terrified me, because they used to be really painful for her and she used to scream. Again, diabetic dog, I've had a diabetic, same thing. So if you had similar relationships that have been repeating, these things are coming back to show you what you're still attached to. These things are showing you why you're not really moving on. It's the same pattern in a different situation. And what I was being shown was my fear of responsibility, my fear of emotional responsibility, my lack of emotional responsibility. And every time that things got difficult, I would run into drugs, I would run away. I never took responsibility for how I felt. Except now I am, and I see the power in that. Because giving him those shots is so easy. Like, it's so easy. And I'm actually on a schedule now, which is really, really easy and powerful. So I'm sharing my personal experience with you guys because it's not only where I've learned the most, but it's to show you that those things, people might hear me talking about this and you think, like, that's stupid, that's so easy. Like, why would you be afraid of those things? But that's my reality. Those are the things that I have attached my fear to. And instead of letting myself become intimate with fear, to have a relationship with fear, not one of avoidance, but one of intimate acceptance. And that's what's been happening. I've been trying to avoid it so much that I came to the point to where I couldn't anymore. And so my invitation to you is to have an intimate relationship with fear, to just give yourself an opportunity to embrace it and love it and accept it, because there is nothing in fear that you're actually afraid of. There is the idea or the perception or the assumption that what you've identified as something to be afraid of, there's something in there, in that fear, that you've identified with as you would be missing out on, you would be losing, that you would be lacking, that if it were to somehow go away, that a part of you would disappear. And so that's really what we're afraid of. We're afraid of losing a part of ourselves, and that's what the fear represents. But this is all of us. The entire reality is us. So therefore, not only do we not lose anything, but we're already interacting with everything. There's no such thing as moreness or enoughness in the future. It's already here right now. And so just like the experience with Bruiser opened up, and like everything I've been trying so hard to manifest is here. Like, I'm interacting with it right now. It just all showed up, just all of a sudden. Because when my attention wasn't on what I was trying to control, it showed up. Just like miraculously, it just appeared. It just started happening because I wasn't worried about needing to make it happen any longer. So that's what I want you guys to really take from this, if nothing else, is that once my attention was away from the thing that I was trying to control the most, the thing that I was trying to control the most just started showing up. Meaning, like, the thing that I was trying to make sure happened, it just started happening. It was already happening, but I was not able to experience it at the capacity that I already have, which is immense capacity, just like you have an immense capacity because we're source. So I had the capacity to experience this relationship and this interaction with my reality differently, but I was not allowing it. I was basically saying, because I need to make it happen, it can't happen because it's not already happening, because I need to make it happen, which means I can't experience it happening right now. It is a part of an infinite parallel reality that's already happening, and I can experience it in any second. But that's only once I let go of needing it to happen, which means I don't try to manifest it. I don't try to make it. I don't try to, none of that. And what I realized, and Mina also brought up a great question. I feel like this might be a question many of you have, is that if she said, okay, like if you're affirming that you're healthy or that Bruiser's healthy and you're constantly, you're going into this affirmation of health, right? Or wealth or whatever. You guys can enter whatever you want in there. If I'm constantly affirming that, would that not also be me trying to control the outcome because I'm basically trying to convince myself of that outcome, which means I don't really believe in it, which means that I'm trying to make it happen instead of allowing it to happen, basically. Now, Mina, if I left something out of that, please let me know. I'm just basically, condensing it. And because since this is all my creation, anything that's happening in contrast to what I desire isn't because I'm not affirming good enough. It's not because I'm not doing good enough. It's not because I'm not, it's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because I ultimately don't believe in that which I desire. Because every action and every second, every moment, the action I'm taking is going in the opposite direction. Which means that I can affirm health, I can affirm a partner, I can affirm Bruiser's health, but why am I affirming it? Well, I was affirming it originally to try to change my thought process because subconsciously my RAS obviously is filtering thoughts of worst case, catastrophic, need to avoid, all those things. Now, prior to this event happening, I was doing the mind movies, as you guys know. I was doing the affirming, and I was seeing glimmers of the reality that I was imagining, and I was seeing glimmers. I was having interactions with the reality that I just spoke about, where everything's working out right now perfectly, but it was only glimmers. Again, it was, some days were really good, other days weren't. So I was using the affirming as a way to try to change what was happening still. I was still trying to change my reality. I still was not accepting what was happening. I still didn't truly believe in that it was already here now because I was still trying to change it. Once I went through the experience with Bruiser and I was faced with that catastrophic event and that experience, I realized that if I'm going to affirm it, I'm going to go into it from a position where I'm not actually, I am affirming it, but I'm not affirming it from a position of trying to convince myself. I am just acknowledging what I'm seeing. So I choose to see the image. I choose to see and visualize the image. And at the same time, I am interacting with the reality right now, what's happening right now from a place of just pure love and appreciation. And that is so important because whatever you're imagining, you're either going to be imagining it because you just don't want to be experiencing what you're experiencing right now. You don't like it, or you're trying to avoid the worst, or you're going to be imagining it because it's just fun and it's playful and it's just a way to further expand what you're already enjoying right now. So if you're not enjoying and you're not at least holding a capacity of acceptance for your reality right now, it's impossible to receive something that you are subconsciously still pushing away. And you may not even realize you're pushing it away because you're not aware that you still have an emotional attachment a belief in the worst case because you're literally affirming and visualizing to try to avoid the worst case. That's what I was doing. I was trying to avoid the worst. That was basically like my excuse to avoid the worst. Now that I've experienced the worst and I see that my emotional capacity to face that was always there, that everything's fine. Now, not only do I not think like I'm not even I haven't done any mind movies. I see like there's no, I don't want to say that. I have played in them a little bit, but what my focal point's been on every single day as everything is just like miraculously happening now, his health, he's going outside all the time. It's like he's playing, he's running, he's like it's amazing. Because I'm not thinking about the fact that he needs to be. I'm not thinking about what I need to do to make things better. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm literally just in the interaction with the way things are happening right now from a position of just celebrating the life, celebrating the experience. So as I'm interacting with my reality, I'm experiencing this celebration for the moment. Now that was missing before because I was only celebrating it when things were going a certain way. Now I'm celebrating every moment because I was faced with the possibility of no longer having those moments to be grateful for and thankful for. That's why I say if you feel the fear now, whatever it is you're afraid of losing, whoever it is you're afraid of losing, if you were to just think about that for a second, that there is going to be a moment where you're no longer going to have the interaction with that person. You're no longer going to have the interaction with that animal, your pet, your parents, your partner, your children. There's going to be a moment where that's not there. And instead of us waiting until it happens to try to manage the emotions, if we go through the process of living it now, then we are taking on the level of emotional responsibility that allows us to see that we have nothing to fear in the future. And if I have nothing to fear in the future, then I'm not pushing future possibilities away because my nervous system is trying to protect me from anything new because it sees new as something that's undesirable. It sees new as something that's unfamiliar, which is dangerous, because it's trying so hard to protect me from, well, the one thing that I fear. And that's something that's new and different because I haven't experienced it. So we fear so many things. We even having more money is something that we may not realize we subconsciously fear because we don't realize that we have such an attachment to lack that we already fear more money. That's because we believe we lack it right now, which means we don't believe that we can experience it right now, which is ultimately a line of lack and poverty and fear. So fear of never having enough. So if I'm attached to that line, then how can I ever experience continual wealth and abundance if I'm afraid I don't have enough right now? How can I experience the continual health, wealth, and wellness of my life and those that I interact with if I'm constantly afraid of losing that thing? I can't. So I trust that that's landing with everyone. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. But it's important to realize that what you desire the most is either going to be coming from a position of fear of never having it or the acceptance that you already do. And that's your decisions. And again, those decisions are anchored in, do you believe in enoughness right now? Do you believe that enough health exists? Do you believe that enough money exists? Do you believe that enough wellness exists? Do you believe that enough life exists? Or are you still chasing the need of those things somewhere down the line in the future? Oh, 1 second. Okay, apologies. I had to reset my screen there. So this is, when it comes down to interacting with what you're experiencing right now, take a look at your life over the last few weeks. Where have you been predominantly in your thoughts and your emotions? Have you been anxious? Have you been depressed? Have you been angry? Have you been afraid? That's your baseline. That's your predominance. Okay. This is where you are predominantly attracting and manifesting and magnetizing from. That's gonna give you an idea of where you're entering into your reality from, like the lens and the awareness. What are you aware of the most? And if you're not aware of the abundance, if you're not aware of the wellness, if you're not aware of the health, if you're not aware of just how beautiful your life really is right now, then how can you expect, I mean, ultimately, how can you expect reality to give you something, because you are reality? How can you expect you to give yourself something that you are ultimately not already attuned to? I mean, there are an infinite number of radio stations that exist in this nation, and I don't know an nth of them. I know a handful because of my local radio stations. Now, obviously, if I wanted to learn what radio stations exist in different towns, I'm going to have to go and visit those towns. I'm going to have to like leave my town and go visit those towns and go talk to people and figure out like what are the good radio stations? Which ones can I tune into to listen to the music that I like? But if I'm not willing to step outside of my town, aka your comfort zone, if you're not willing to go outside of your comfort zone and move away from your fears, because the fears are seductive, the worries are seductive. They're seductive because you think that you need to worry about what comes next in order to feel prepared. And that's just the way your senses, that's just the way your nervous system is keeping you safe, because it's familiar. It's familiar to worry about it. It's familiar to need the next step. It's familiar to need those things. But if you're not introducing a new familiar, if you're not introducing a new city with new options for radio wavelengths, then how are you going to even know that experience exists if you don't even give it an opportunity? If you don't step outside your comfort zone, that's like, everybody has GPS now. When I grew up, I didn't have GPS. we had maps and we had memory, and that's how we got around. Nobody, I used to know how to get everywhere. And I mean, I could drive somewhere one time and remember it. And I didn't need help going anywhere. I've always been amazing with directions. And as soon as GPS comes out, I feel absolutely like an idiot now, because it's like that memory, that muscle memory of just being able to drive the roads and to the locations I know by heart. I haven't built that memory up because of GPS. I stopped using that muscle memory. So those pathways are no longer familiar. So now I'm dependent on GPS when I grew up in an era where GPS didn't exist, where we just, we knew where to go because we paid attention. That's the only way you could remember is you pay attention to where you're going, or you get directions or you read a map. So that's an example of how the familiar pathways of lack, of not trusting yourself, of not trusting your decision, how they're built, because you're giving more time, energy, and attention to relying on your fear, or relying on your avoidance of fear, which is a relying on the lack, because you believe more in lack, right? I believe more that I lack money right now than in the fact that I have enough to pay for what I need. That's an example. Or I believe in the fact that just because I'm not in a relationship right now, that I'm somehow missing out on a better life, because my specific person or the love of my life isn't in my life right now. So therefore I'm somehow missing out, and therefore I need to have a partner, or I need to have the love of my life, or else my life is incomplete. If you're searching for a partner, or you're searching for a specific person, and you're doing so because you believe that that's the only way your life is going to be complete, it's going to automatically push. I mean, your echo chamber is lack. I lack this. I need it or else. I need it or else. That's not a clear signal of love and support. That's a need. That's a neediness. That's a signal of I need something or else my life is not going to be okay. And that's a victim signal, which is why people wonder why they're a good person, but they attract a narcissist. There is no narcissist. There's neediness, and then there is the neediness getting itself back from a form of control, because that's ultimately what neediness is. I have to have this, or else I don't feel like my life matters. I have to control this. I need to have this in my life. That need is control. And that's why, I mean, I've had plenty of those experiences. And I realized there was never a narcissistic boyfriend. There was never a narcissistic partner. It was just me. It was just me and my victim mentality, me and my neediness. So I trust that this is landing with everyone. I'm not for sure if you guys have been commenting. I don't know if my comments are refreshing. So if you have and I can't see it, I apologize. It does that sometimes. But if everyone's just being quiet, that's totally fine too. I just want to make sure if there are any comments coming through and I'm not seeing them, that I apologize if that's happening. But I trust this is landing with you guys. I'm wanting to get as much in here and without, because I could talk about this for like 2 hours, but I want to get this in an hour or under if I can here. So what I would recommend, okay, awesome. Thank you, Mina. I'm glad to know that I'm actually able to receive them. I would highly recommend taking notes, coming back and revisiting this a few times. And also too, I will open this up for real quickly if anyone has any questions, if you would like for me to clarify something, or if you have an example of something that you're going through right now that you would like for me to reflect upon. That's one of the main reasons why I do these lives, is because I love connecting with people in real time. I love reflecting and exchanging. So if anyone has anything that they would like to bring forward, please do so. I know I talk about Bruiser a lot. I mean, he's my fur baby. He's essentially my child, as I've said. And as you can imagine, if you're a mother, that relationship carries a lot of emotional entanglement. And if you are a parent, I do want to say this. Please, please, please be aware of your emotional hygiene. And I don't just mean from like sage and like energy clearings. I mean, that's great. But true emotional hygiene, from my perspective and my experience after practicing Reiki and energy clearings and channeling and, a little bit of Qigong and stuff, is that the real hygiene is maintaining a moment to moment state of emotional responsibility, because we literally exist in the span of a moment, literally a heartbeat, a second. That's the only place that we exist. It's snapshots. It's just snapshots. We're just taking snapshots, and then it's just like this holographic projection of a million, not even millions, a number larger than I have the word for right now, of snapshots. And we're constantly putting this information out and receiving it back. But we filter that information based on our subconscious library. And that subconscious library is full of emotional attachment. That's the anchor. So if something keeps repeating and keeps showing up in your relationships with others, if there is a consistent, and obviously this starts within you before it ever happens within another version of you, but a feeling, a sensation, anxiety, fear, if it constantly comes up around a very specific subject matter or person or choice, then you're carrying some information in your library that you're not fully aware of, or you're aware of, but you're still running from. You're not allowing yourself to clean up your emotional reactivity or your emotional attachment, not necessarily reactivity, but the reactivity is what begins to store the information in the library. And that's when I shared the situation and the story with Bruiser and what happened upstairs, and how I was having thoughts with my parents, and I was worried about him peeing and upstairs in the hallway, and then worried about what my parents were going to say, and worried about all the things. That's my emotional library in relation to Bruiser, in relation to my parents, in relation to the house. So see, it starts very centralized with me, and it starts to go out. It starts here and then it goes out. So my library is storing this looping this looping record of where I'm going to go anytime a specific range of experiences happen. Bruiser goes to pee inside. That's the range of experience. That's the thought process. That's the emotions. The only way that my interaction with that gets to be differently, which frees up everyone else in my reality from the reactivity, and it frees us all up from having to revisit that again, is I decide that it doesn't mean anything. I decide that I'm not going to be emotionally invested in that experience. And that's what I saw when I was upstairs cleaning up that urine, was that I've been too emotionally invested in what happens. I've been too emotionally invested with worry over this happening, that I was so afraid of it happening that it had to continue happening so I could see what I was afraid of. And now that I am choosing to see that it's just something that happens, and there's literally nothing else there, it's just something that happens, I don't feel anxiety around it, and it's already started to wean itself out. So anytime you meet yourself with an experience, an interaction of something that is emotionally charged, remember, it's because you have decided time and time and time again that that means something to you. You have decided what it means, and you've decided how you feel about what it means. So start to just simply let go of those layers. You have to decide it whatever means something to you in that, at that degree, it has to become as mundane as your morning coffee, as I say. It has to be something that you like. I don't get emotionally anxious about drinking my cup of coffee. I don't worry about what somebody's going to say. I don't worry about what's going to happen to Bruiser while I'm drinking my cup of coffee. That's because I haven't attached anything to the moment that I drink my cup of coffee. So whatever you're attaching meaning to, you're also attaching emotion to. So start letting go of the meaning. It doesn't mean you avoid it. It means you recognize it, and then you no longer reinforce it. You simply just let the moment pass. You pay attention to the emotions. You feel them fully. Don't run from them. Metabolize them. You need to be fully in the experience of the emotions to let your body neutralize any place within your body that's carrying the imprint, so that you don't have to keep gluing yourself to that experience or snapping back that rubber band. And that's going to be your gateway out, to just be in it, feel it, see the meaning, feel the experience, let it consume you, and then let go. Just let it go. Acknowledge that it's perfect the way that it is. It's happening exactly as it needs to, and there is nothing wrong with it, and you don't need to change it. Just see that moment as mundane. Just bring something to the forefront, whether it's something you eat for breakfast, whether it's your drive to work or your morning walk, or whatever it is that you can bring forward that's just really boring, that you don't have an emotional attachment to. Use that as your gateway to release yourself from the attachment that you have to those moments where there is reactivity. So that's what I've got today, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for receiving. I'm also planning to be here on Sunday with you all if you would like to join me live, exploring some more things that are, very present, and I do trust will be relatable. And if you have anything specific that you would like for me to bring forward, please drop it in the comments and let me know. I would love to speak into anything that anyone would like for me to, or like I said, further clarify. But if not, then I will definitely be here with you guys on Sunday if you would like to join me live. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you receiving this. I love you so, so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys then. Until then.